Back to you live from Nisku, Alberta, the Silent Ice Center for the Co-op Canadian Open on the Grand Slam of Curling Tour, second event of the season. For men's draw number 2, the top 16 ranked teams in the world competing for the right to add another Grand Slam title to their resume. Our feature matchup today, Team Jacobs versus Team Dunstone. We'll take a look at the lineups here for this matchup. For Team Jacobs, skip Brad Jacobs, third Mark Kennedy, second Brett Gallant, and lead Ben Hebert. And for Team Dunstone, skip Matt Dunstone, third BJ Neufeld, second Colton Lott, and lead Ryan Harnden. For this feature matchup, Tyler George coming to you live, joined by good friend, Olympic champion, 7-time world champion, 3-time Olympic medalist. We could go on forever with the accomplishments, but you know who he is, Nicholas Sedin. Nicholas, great start to the competition for you. Thrilled to be joining the booth with you, our first game we're doing together.
Yeah, this should be a thrill. I'm really looking forward to it, and the ice is great, so we should see a great game here.
Yeah, Nick, you've already been out there. A big win to start off your week over Team Craig. A nice little 5-end game to give the broadcast crew a break, too, so we appreciate that. But tell us what you saw from the ice so far and what we expect going forward.
It was really, really nice, actually. The speed was close to perfect. The amount of curl was a little bit straighter to start, but then we got a nice 5 feet during most of the game. So it was very close to perfect, in my opinion.
We expect a great battle here between two teams very familiar with each other, with different lineups over the years, as there's been a lot of shuffling in these last 2 quads. But great start to the season for Team Jacobs, as it just came off a win in their previous event at the Penticton Curling Classic. 4 events so far this year that they have placed in, 2 quarterfinal finishes, 1 semifinal finish. And on the other side for Team Dunstone, 4 events for them. They won the Fall Classic first, made the semis at the first slam, the Tour Challenge. Semis also in Penticton, and the quarters for the Shorty Jenkins. So we were joking a little bit earlier, Nick, about the 2 Korean teams we had for the previous game. Gim and Ha had played 8 and 9 events between the 2 teams so far this year. A little softer start, more conventional start to the season for these 2 teams. How do you feel about that front-loaded schedule for that many events with teams playing?
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like a young Team Edin. We used to play everything, so I think they're going to come around and maybe play a little bit less as they get older and get used to these events. These are long, taxing events, so if you want to play all the 5 slams and maybe a couple of championships and long, tough events, I think the 20 mark is a tough one for sure. So I think the more experienced teams, they kind of tend to settle around 15 or so.
And when teams play these slam schedules too, Nick, for a lot of people, they look at it and say, well, they're only playing 1 game a day, so it's a lighter schedule for them, but it's still a long week. So if you do qualify, ideally, you're playing right through the weekend, and you're probably arriving Monday at the latest and then leaving that Monday after. So despite the lack of number of games played, it's still a grind over a week-long competition.
Yeah, for sure, and these are not easy games. You gotta get going right from the start. You got 4 games, and you basically have to win 3 or you're out. So you gotta start well, and you gotta be really focused and just take every game as the final, basically. And that is a little bit of a difference from normal tour events when you can play 2 or maybe even 3 games a day. But those are usually not quite as taxing. You don't have to be fully focused for every single end, every one of those games.
So lead Ryan Harnden for Team Dunstone. His first shot slides into the rings, which attempting to throw the center guard. So Ben Hebert gets to play a rare takeout for Ben.
Curl, Mark. Coming down a little.
He's trying to hit this on the nose or close to it, stay off the rings.
Nice. Okay, good.
It does spin on, so we may see a conventional first-end trade hit. A little conservative play from both teams, but obviously with that first guard, Nick going in the rings, changes up the strategy considerably for what they're doing going forward.
Yeah, and this suits Team Jacobs really well with Hammer. They would love to just get an easy blank here and try and go for the deuce in the second end. That makes their job a lot easier, and they can bang some time on the clocks.
And for your game earlier today, we had none of that. Bunch of rocks in the rings right from the start, and always nice to start any game, but especially the entire tournament with a 3 in the first end.
We don't like the bank time either. So.
Good throw, Pete. 10-5.
So that hit stays off the rings. Hebert will be playing the intern. Coming around that corner guard, and good, comfortable start for Team Jacobs with Hammer, no center guards in play, just playing around the short corner. So, as you said, Nick, this is pretty much a 0 or 2 type of end where you have no danger for Team Jacobs. And for your first game of the tournament, even though this is the second men's draw, for all these teams playing right now, this is their first game. So great to get that nice, comfortable start, and good come-around draw from Ben.
Stay here high.
10-5.
Like throwing 9-5.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what they would have chose if this draw was a little deeper, but now a pretty automatic call to just play this short run back here.
You always like these for the scorecard when it says run back in the books, and there's about a foot and a half between the two stones.
Whoa.
Colton Lott playing the out-turn run.
Gotta go. Really gotta go.
Does make the run, doesn't stick, but corner guard still up there. Jacobs electing to peel out, so they're playing all-out blank with this. Little surprised they're not taking another go at coming around the corner and maybe playing for the 0 or 2 still.
Yeah, I guess it's just being a little too tight to the rings. The run back and maybe even stick it buried would be a little too easy, especially once they've played one already. So probably just taking the easy way out there and banking some time, getting an easy blank here.
And Dunstone just fine with that as well, playing the draw into the house, so very likely we'll see. We don't want to jinx in the broadcast booth too much, but a blank attempt at the least on the final shot. Good free look here for Colton Lott from the draw to the button too. Another shot that it's nice to get out of the gates as a player in the first end of a tournament and get a draw to the lid, get a good feel for the ice.
Top 4.
I think especially if you didn't do the draw for Hammer, then you probably didn't play too many shots in a quick path. And here we see Colton Lott probably not sure exactly what that first draw was going to do and ending up well deep in the rings there.
Normal, guys.
And as you mentioned, Nick, banking time for both teams, and immediate call for Brett Gallant to hit this stone in the back of the 12-foot. Don't expect to see anything out of the ordinary now, just trading these hits out and move on to the second. So look at, again, this season for both teams. Team Jacobs ranked number 5 in the world. Very strong start for them. Number 9 year to date for Team Dunstone. Number 8 in the world. And number 4 year to date. So both teams, good results early on. Really no danger for either of them of not qualifying for slams going forward, which is always foremost in your mind. I don't think your team had any issues with that, like getting on the edge of qualifying over the years. All the ones we were at, I know you were there. That was never an issue.
Yeah, I think we had one season when we kind of started low. I think we started 11th or something like that, but we got off to a good start that year. But I think other than that season, we've been fairly consistently in like the middle bunch of the slams.
I think your team has done as good a job as any in the world at pacing out your schedules and the energy you're putting in to peak at the right times. For those of us, especially being post-competitive career, watching which teams are out there grinding early. Again, as you mentioned, the younger teams we tend to see that with. But some of the more experienced teams, I'm not going to say older, more experienced.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wisely, spreading the schedule out, still getting enough events in to qualify for slams, but really saving your best reps and peaking late in the season and being ready for the World Championships, Olympics, events like that, because really that's what all of it is for anyways.
Yeah, and I think definitely also as you get older, other things get in the way, so it's not easy to find the time to practice and work on other things in the gym, etc. So I think if we would compete the same amount as we did 10 years ago, there just wouldn't be enough time to kind of recover and work on stuff that we need to still improve in our game. So I think with the getting older, I think you just need to slow down a little bit on the traveling and the competition schedule.
Curl.
Mark Kennedy, the intern,
Clean.
hitting stick here on this rock in the
10-2.
back of the
Attaboy.
8th foot. Still playing this end out for
Same way.
the blank. 2010
Attaboy,
Olympic
Mark.
gold medalist. Makes no issue of that one. And Nick, with the prep for
Little bit less.
playing in those
Right on the
tournaments
edge.
too, you talk about practice, not having as much time. Having more targeted practices with things that are very specific that you're working on, as opposed to, our formative years in our 20s when we're just throwing rock after rock after rock and getting reps in. It's more about what specifically do I need to work on? What does our team need to work on so that we're getting the most out of our time without burning ourselves out?
Exactly, and you got to also keep that motivation high, which is not an issue whatsoever early in the career. We want to climb the rankings. We want to make sure we qualify for all the top events, and playing lots to achieve that is kind of a no-brainer. Once you kind of get there, though, to stay there, I think you can't keep going with that super tough schedule and practicing the 2 sessions a day with 250 rocks every session.
Right.
And I think we've all kind of been there. I think that's something you have to do at some point to get the consistency in your game. But then as you get older and as you start playing in tougher events, playing tough opponents all the time, I think you need to just practice and play smarter. And I think for me at least, I've gone from those kind of 250, 300 rocks per session, which is an insane amount. My knee would explode if I did that now. To maybe just playing 10, 15 rocks in a session, and some weeks only once a week, to kind of focus on other stuff and make sure I'm mentally ready as well. So the amount of hours and throws in practice have gone from a massive amount to a very mild amount, I would say, but then still competing quite a bit, obviously. That's good practice too.
The Sheriff, Matt Dunstone, his final stone. This first end, the 23 Briar finalist. 2-time World Junior Bronze medalist. 2-time Briar Bronze. I really enjoy that it lists the Sheriff as his nickname on his Wikipedia page now, too.
Oh, wow.
It's really gone that far.
Yeah, that's good.
Matt, one of the more fun guys on tour, always up for an interview, good conversation, good ambassador for the game. He's kind of getting to the veteran point now, too. I remember watching him in World Juniors. It goes fast, but final stone already of this first end, as we said, traded hits out. And Brad Jacobs, 2014 Olympic gold medalist.
Come on.
Looking to get that blank, and we did not jinx. It does roll out, so Jacobs does get his blank. We are 0-0 after one end to play.
I've stood at the pinnacle of curling and battled in the most intense games.
Out on the ice, there's no room for compromise.
And when the pressure's on, every millimeter counts.
It's not just a game.
It's about maximizing performance.
So a clean slate in the first end of our feature matchup here on Sheet A. The Co-op Canadian Open, the Grand Slam of Curling second event of the season. Tyler George joined by Nicholas Sedin. And Nick, something we haven't seen very much so far in the first 2 rounds, but not unusual at all for the first end of your first game in any spiel, let alone a slam, to be played wide open. Just try to get your feet underneath you, get used to the conditions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in this case, they didn't really try to get that blank. The first rock of the end was an attempt to play in a guard, but when it slips into the rings, then both teams kind of agreeing to play it a little bit conservatively and getting that blank.
Shot we don't see all that often these days. The draw to the open side from Team Jacobs as The center guard once again crosses the center line. So not a rock that Brad's afraid of and willing to trade as many hits as Team Dunstone is willing to do.
Solid. Well then, clean.
Now that's a little bit of a surprising call to me. In the second end, I would have thought a corner guard and kind of played a little more offensively to try and get a good deuce and get the lead in this game early. But
yeah, they actually played the more difficult way to get underneath, all the way to the back of the 8-foot. But yeah, for Team Jacobs, a little surprising just that when that guard isn't right on the center line, you know, whether you're electing to tick it or not, it kind of opens the door for you to play more aggressively because you don't have anything to fear. It's not a strong steal spot when that rock is off center. So if you go to corner, you can really attack, or you can play the way they played the first and just go underneath. But they still wouldn't have been able to play the run yet.
yeah, I 100% agree. I think most teams would have elected to play a corner guard there, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And then an expensive miss here, and this is going to be trouble.
Yeah, interesting calls to start off with Jacobs drawing open side, but then electing to play the soft weight hit afterwards. So very conservative start for them. Now for Dunstone, they can put a little bit of pressure on to at least get Team Jacobs chasing. Colton Watts, out-turn, come around, draw. Really nice hit and roll there from lead Ryan Harden.
Yeah, you got room right now.
Yeah, he probably doesn't get to do them too often, so he's probably pretty pumped to make one.
Go ahead, line will be good.
I guess the good thing for Jacobs here, though, is that all three are fairly close together on one straight line. We're going to see a couple of doubles here, and most likely this will end up in a blank, or worst case scenario, they get forced to one, which isn't the worst thing ever for the team with Hammer in the second end.
Yeah, you're really looking to make one run to get yourself out of trouble, and that's the level of play that we're at here too. Is we expect at some point during this end, Team Jacobs to make that run, open things up, and it's still not danger because it's off center, but at least give yourself a chance to have an easy one, maybe bring blank back into play.
This is a bit of a key shot. If he can make double and stay as a corner, it changes the end a little bit. If he rolls too far here, the red is still kind of controlling the end. If that would have stayed a corner guard, then Dunstone would have had to deal with it. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, for Dunstone, if you're wondering why they're not throwing, well, they have changed back up to center. A little surprised, Nick, that they're throwing the guard with a rock on the top or the back of the 8-foot as opposed to drawing open, or are you willing to dare them to draw around?
Yeah, I think they just know that Jacobs won't make that come around at this point, at least, maybe later in the end. But at this point, they kind of know that they will make a couple of peels first, so they can afford to just guard and make the easy shot. Jacobs, if they stay for a corner guard, that might change a little bit. But if they just peel, they will keep doing this for one or two more and then go into the rinse, I think.
And kind of an in-between spot with that guard, too. Not so tight that you feel like it'd be a short run for Dunstone if he came around it, but not so high that you can't come around and bury and have the rock able to be dug out. So they're just going to dig the back one out. So everything Jacobs has called so far has just been to kind of take their time, not overextend, a little conservative.
And again, I would have expected him to actually hit the guard, maybe stay for a corner guard. You can at least get some sort of counter move.
Right.
But leaving this center, if they ever do the same mistake again, not getting it out, or like this, getting to nose, and now you'll see a freeze. I think it was maybe a little bit too conservative. They're given a lot of opportunity for Dunstone to get the better of this end.
Dunstone playing the same shot with the opposite turn. Also playing to hit this stone. They seem really willing to overextend so far. Really well thrown by Gallant on that second one, stick. Now playing out turn side, BJ Neufeld.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Same type of weight, right around
Whoa,
hack.
whoa, girl, clean.
Again, kind of that in-between
Clean,
track,
yeah.
Nick, where you got to be
Whoa.
careful of this taking a hard
Clean.
turn and
Clean, yep.
losing weight,
Straight.
but
Whoa.
it doesn't look like it's going to
Clean,
be
just
any
clean.
issue
Go ahead,
here.
girl. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. 12-4. Great weight, Beach.
No, that is definitely in the first couple of ends. When you're playing the 4-foot, it might really slow down sometimes on you. But I think this week it seems like the ice is really nice all over the surface. It's nice and keen, and speed is good from the get-go. And getting all the way to nose was key there. I would have expected them to play the freeze, actually, knowing that Jacobs wants to really keep this wide open and maybe even get another blank. That was a good opportunity to play a freeze and get some sort of score in this end, but getting all the way to nose is, I guess, almost as good.
Weight's good.
And this is the one, too, Nick, that if Mark makes this on the nose, that's your best opportunity to play the freeze, too. I think they're trying to roll away with the weight they're playing. So that's well done. Yeah, if that one ends up on the nose, I'd have been very surprised if they didn't play the freeze back with it being that close to the button.
That's a little bit the thing with the last one. They tried to roll to the wing as well, but not succeeding to do so, over curling and being fully buried back 8. I thought that was the opportunity that Dunstone was kind of waiting for. If they would have played a freeze there, and then you get the freeze, you might get at least a force. Now it's really looking like a blank again, and even though it's the second end, I think this favors Team Jacobs, keeping this wide open, as clearly that is their game plan.
And Nick, how much does that factor into your decision-making in that spot, too? We talk about, as curlers, we're asked, how much are you playing off of the other team's strategy? We say 95% of the time, we're just trying to dictate the action, do what we want to do. But as you mentioned, when you see that a team is playing that conservatively, and they're trying to roll away and not stay behind the guard, does that affect your decision and say, they didn't accomplish what they wanted to, here's our chance to push the action on them and play that freeze as opposed to playing the hit?
100%, especially since they're showing their game plan. It's very obvious they want to keep this wide open, blank as many ends as they can, and really put it down to Team Dunstone having to take a big risk at in one of the later ends and maybe falling in that trap. So I would for sure have called for the freeze in that earlier stage and kind of take that possibility away from Jacobs after making the mistake. I would want to punish that mistake when they didn't roll away to play the freeze. But at the same time, if we don't make the freeze, they might score 2, and that's not great either.
Yeah. Yeah, risk reward on what you're trying to accomplish, how you're trying to dictate the action, but is it worth playing it? And that probably also comes down to the comfort level with the ice this early in the game too. Maybe they didn't feel that comfortable playing the freeze, but both teams still continuing to trade hits. Dunstone now hitting this rock in the back of the 8, trying to roll under cover.
Hard, right to it, Pete. Right to it.
This is over curling. See if it holds on the paint.
That makes a big difference, that one holding on. Otherwise, you would have just seen the guard being peeled. Now, not the easiest hit ever. You don't have enough room to roll, and if they ever roll out, that's great opportunity to force or even steal with that center guard.
Yeah, that's actually a really good spot to roll to because, as you mentioned, how little margin for error they have with the hit and stick. If they roll out, it's an automatic come-around draw for Dunstone. So they really need to stick here. Make sure that they don't allow Dunstone the free look drawing around. Maybe not necessarily to steal, but to get the free draw and to force at the very least.
This actually was a really interesting end. A lot of calls that you could probably have done kind of 50-50 with other options.
One of the things we love about our sport, that there can be 2 rocks in play and still interesting strategic decisions back and forth, where there could be 6 rocks in and it's very cut and dry what you're going to do. Nicely done by Jacobs to stick around there. That will force Dunstone to have to hit as well. The difference between that rock being in and not is Dunstone will not take on the draw around the guard when he can bring 2 into play. So simple decision either way. Matt was drawing if they roll out and hitting if they stick.
If this would have been later in the game, you might have seen them come around their own guard. If they make that come around perfectly top 8, there really is no shot for 2. Jacobs would have had to draw for 1, but it's just not worth it at this stage.
So Dunstone is going to get aggressive at the roll here because he really doesn't feel that there's much difference between sticking on the nose or rolling out. Brad's going to get the blank anyways. So they're going to go hard at trying to roll under the guard and at least make the blank tougher.
Hard!
Jeez.
This is curling hard.
Now this is going to roll out, so that'll be another blank. Jacobs will pick whatever line he wants to see. Some curling 101 here for people to stay interested on this last shot. Nick, as you know, you never waste a rock or a path. You pick a spot you want to see.
What's that?
I like that.
So Brad's going to get a read on a line that he wants to see for later in the game. Looks as though he's playing the intern inside out.
Especially this early in the game, you want to get a read. Later in the game, especially if the clocks are low, then you might just see them rush down and throw it through. But this early, you still can pick up some information.
Yep, and that's why he's not firing this through either. Just you heard 11, so nice board weight hit. Trying to see that line, and all the players paying very close attention. That's professional curling there. It is another blank. So 0-0 after 2 ends of play in our feature matchup.
Line's good.
Nothing but zeros on the scoreboard so far. 2 blanks for Team Dunstone and
Line's
Team
good. Little bit
Jacobs.
for line.
Our feature
No,
matchup
line's
here
good.
on sheet
Line's good for
A.
bottom of the logo here.
Ryan Harnden throwing the center guard.
Line's good.
Start off. And Nicholas, it's not as though they've
Good
been
now, good.
starting the ends to play them wide open.
Shot, Pete.
This is the 3rd end in a row that Dunstone has tried to start with a center guard, but just hasn't thrown one that's been good enough to play to force or steal. So we may see a little more action now, but we'll see where Jacobs decides to throw this stone.
And this, in my opinion, is kind of where Dunstone, if they really want to win this game, I think they need to step it up and really try to force Jacobs to one here.
Just let it work. Curl a bit.
Yeah, they're really playing this wide open. I mean, this stone now is a good center guard. They were playing just to throw that to T back 8, back 4. Ends up being out in the side 12 foot, but definitely a little surprising with the level of conservative play that Jacobs has started out with, especially considering this is not a team that's trying to find their feet. This is a team that's playing extremely well right now, coming off of a victory in their last tour event, but really playing to just shorten the game up right now.
Yeah, and again, I'm actually surprised they are playing the hit here. I think this is right up the Team Jacobs alley. They really want to keep the play like this, and when they get to play their strategy like this with the quality of players they are, it's going to be really difficult to find better windows, better opportunities than this. And in the 3rd end, really got to go for it. A really nice roll here, though.
That's perfectly done by Harnden with 2 of those in the first 3 ends of the game at lead. It's what you dream about at the lead position.
I guess if you have a lead that makes those for fun, I guess why not play the hit and roll?
Well, Chris would never let you hear the end of it if he did that 2 out of the first 3 ends, but you'd never call it to let him.
I'd never let him play that hit and roll.
Did he? Yeah.
And we talked, it looks like they are playing the freeze now too, so we should get some more rocks in play. But we talked a little bit because we want to pump the tires of the leads a little bit as well about your lead, Chris Sundgren, in the first game earlier. That may be the most consistent lead in the game. His rock placement so good, and so much of what you're able to do, obviously, as a curling team is dependent on the execution from your front-end players. And when your lead is making shots all the time, the way that yours does, it just makes things so much easier as a skip to call the end that you want to call and be able to attack when you get the opportunity.
For sure. I think especially in the longer events when you can kind of trust those lead rocks always being in good, useful positions, and even when a mistake is made, it's kind of always made the right way. And I never thought I'd say this about Christopher, the much younger guy than me, that he's actually extremely experienced. Talking about the best leads in the game, looking back through the eras, he's now right up there, one of the most experienced ever to play the game at lead, in my opinion. And yeah, that makes a big difference, especially in that position, to have the experience to never miss the wrong way.
And just so you know, we're not saying it just because you're here. Brent and I were talking about that during your game. So we'll pump his tires whether we think he's listening or not.
Oh, I hope he's listening now. But I actually said something nice.
Loving this call.
He could go for a month on that compliment.
Tell you the truth,
now,
I'm kind of liking that. Normal.
Yeah, here we got a
Normal.
more interesting end being played out, if you will. And
Now, this shot is more of what you were talking about, too, with hitting the guard but rolling over to keep it for a corner and keep control of the end so you have the opportunity to attack. Whether you decide to go for the blank or the two, keeping the shooter here while opening the middle is what gives you that opportunity later in the end.
Clean. Well.
yeah, I think it's just such a
Clean. Yep.
good kind of call, doing 2-in-1 here, opening up the middle, but
Roll.
also creating something offensively.
That's really good by Gallant. Rolls to the corner. So the chess match will begin now. Rock placement. Dunstone's going to replace the guard. Colton Watts. Stone. Quick spin around the other rings as this guard is coming down. Schwaller with a 2-0 lead after 2 ends on Kleider with a 2 in the second. Tough start for my countryman, Team Schuster. For on sheet C, McEwen with a 4 in the first. They're still playing the second end with a bunch of rocks in play. Over on sheet D, Mowat 1-0 over Osley.
You really got to go, guys.
Blank in the second.
Hard, Pete. Go. Hard. Keep going. Great sweep, guys. Great spot.
Our women's draw this
Am I running a
afternoon.
little low?
Nicholas, we had a 7-3 score after 3 ends of play with the 2 Korean star teams, Yim and Ha. No shortage of rocks and player things to talk about curling-wise for that game. Brent and I were trying to keep up more than we were filling time with blank ends like you and I have.
That's a little bit of the opposite of what we have here, but interesting none the least, and hopefully the rocks in play here will make a score one way or the other, not just another blank.
And for Dunstone here, you're just making Jacobs waste rocks with these centers, but they've decided to switch gears. Hit the rock in the house now. Playing the short in-turn run-in. You think you'd throw one more center here at least before you play this shot? A little bit too early?
I was going to say, I think this is a little bit too early. I think, again, if you ask Team Jacobs what they hope Dunstone is going to do, I think they would want Dunstone to play this hit now.
And the rationale being, too, is that shot's made well, and sit 3, is the earlier you play that shot, the more opportunities you give your opponent with hammer a chance to try to set up a 2. You make them waste one more, like we were talking about.
That's perfect.
Now they get 4 opportunities to try to set up 2 as opposed to 3, because it's very unlikely they would have done anything but peel, I think, on that next shot still.
And the big difference being that corner guard, where Brett Gallant rolled to a perfect corner guard. The other side is open. The risk is minimum. If they can make a double here, that corner will come into play. I agree with you. I think that was one move too early to play that hit, but we'll see if they can stay away from the deuce here.
Hard.
Mark Kennedy trying to lose a couple of these
Yep.
reds. Ooh, goes right through the hole and doesn't get the roll, so a little bit of a misread there. Your strategy can look a lot smarter when you get a little half miss from your opponent, too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you make all the shots that you call, most strategies will work. And if you have the perfect strategy, but you don't make the shots, then any kind of strategy will make you look foolish.
Gotta go.
So it's definitely a combination. You need to make a lot of shots, and you need to have a good strategy.
Keep going. Hard on the roll. Good. Sweet.
Nice control weight there from Neufeld. Rolls back to the same area. Makes the double and roll a lot more difficult. I think you're...
I mean, you just roll half a rock.
I mean, you're either trying this double and a little roll, or we're doing this now.
No, I like that first one, I think.
All right. So it's 7/8, Mark.
Yeah, I like this.
You heard 7/8, so they're playing the double and trying to roll, but need to play this with weight in order to lose both and roll under the corner. So Mark's going to throw this one pretty hard.
Clean.
Definitely more weight than his previous shot.
Whoa.
We're actually playing the outside double there. I would have thought the other double and try and roll behind the corner. Even making this double looked kind of likely to be a force, even if made.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever anything but trying to stay away from a force playing that, but that was by design. Really, that was thrown and called, I think. So definitely surprised there.
I'd like to keep a little bit open just so that run.
Playing the other way, even if you stuff it, it's so far in the back and not really a risk. If they would have stuffed this one and rolled away, then it was going to be fairly close to the forefoot. Might look into a tougher score at the end of it.
Probably max.
My hits are curling a little.
Still looking wide open now, having made that double at least, so they should at least get the point and be first on the board here.
Half on the top 8. Yeah, I think like this is similar to Ben's in the first end.
Conservative calls continue early from Team Jacobs.
Probably thinking like a 40
Looking to run as many ends out as they can. And the one thing they do get from that shot, Nick, is that there's going to be a simple shot to score on their last with virtually anything that Dunstone throws here and on his next.
Just sink and draw to the button.
So you're making sure of the score, trying to still find a blank if you can.
Yeah, funny things tend to happen as well when you're playing kind of conservative like this. You really want the blank in the third, and you don't want to be forced. If they get a crack at some kind of difficult double to get a blank, they might go for it, because they really don't want to get forced here. That's what the strategy has been all about, blanking all the ends they can, but especially the odd ends.
Yeah, this may be a bit of an error here from Dunstone. You notice Kennedy not sweeping that stone. That's intentional because they want that to stop in a spot where the freeze is still shot rock or the jam would be shot rock. So Dunstone kind of gave them an out there. That's the danger in throwing the come around. That has to be above the tee line if you're going to throw that shot. So now all of a sudden the door is open for Jacobs to possibly sneak a 2 out of this.
Yeah, so like 14-5.
Yeah. 14-8 is close, guys, with a clean.
So, yeah,
Like, they were dead off that.
Okay, so, yeah, top button, top 4 height.
Okay.
Somewhere in there, top button height.
Love that.
Talking 14-8. So if that's the number they are aiming for, the ice is about the same as we had this morning. Nice and quick, a nice feeling.
Jacobs with the in-turn draw. You heard top button for height. So they want to stay above the tee barely, but have enough depth that they can bury.
Weight's good.
Okay, line's good.
Sweepers like it. Kennedy likes it.
Gotta go. Line's good.
Top four.
Little bit of room.
Now they don't want this to curl anymore, so that the freeze can be shot and partially buried behind the guard.
Perfect. Really good shot there.
Good.
Yeah, great team shot, Nicholas. The sweepers read that perfectly to where they called it to. I mean, that's probably if Brad could hand place that stone, that's where he'd want
How
it.
much can you see?
And to your point, too, they didn't want it deeper so they can't freeze, but it still plays into the jam, too. There's no chance to pick that over the top.
Yeah. So is it
Although I
9-5
think Matt's
then?
still going to look at it.
Like, I don't know if I'm seeing peel.
I think if you
Yeah, I like the 9-5.
Like, I think the
really
9-5.
wanted to, I think you can nail a freeze here.
We're gonna see with the 10 or with the peel.
Okay.
You know?
I like that.
Like, does that look
Yeah,
like
that's really
9-5?
the only spot, but it looks like, yeah, he is going to try to tick this
Little
over the
more?
top. This is so thin.
Or do you think
Rear
that's
red. It
Based
is
off the
there.
guard, it looks like maybe a
but
shade more.
if you're
Okay.
looking, the
You like
difficulty
throwing
of
like
the
a
shot,
9-5 at this?
I mean, do you think this is easier than just playing to the freeze?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
If you ask me personally, no.
That's
It's
about-
obviously
Just not sure what I'm
preference.
gonna see
for
Dunst-
him, yeah, it's preference.
and
I
Dunstone
think
is
with
a
9-5, you can assume we're
fantastic
always gonna get a
takeout
bit of
player.
curl.
He will make this much more than not. So if he sees it, then he's very likely to make it. In my opinion, just having seen that draw come in from Jacobs, they should have a very good idea what the freeze would do. But at the same time, you need to make that so perfectly, not to give them an easy deuce.
Final stone here of the third end for Matt Dunstone. Just looking to pick this rock over the top, out the side. Needs to be paper thin on this yellow stone. That's going to wreck the guard anyways, so never a chance on that one.
Even if that would have made it past the guard, it was curling too much. It was always going to jam. That was maybe in hindsight. We mentioned it earlier or before the shot too, but I think in hindsight, it just not even being close on that, I think really that wasn't the right call. I think the freeze would have just gets a better
Seems good.
kind of margin for error too, letting the sweepers be in the game a little bit. You can place it in a few different spots where at least it's going to be difficult. This one was an all-in, all or nothing. They either make it or they miss it.
Yeah, I agree on that. And does end up wrecking the guard. So final stone of the end for Brad Jacobs, electing to play the same draw path as he just threw.
Just hit it hard. Keep some angle, and just hit it. Back button.
Back button, so they're just playing for line right now,
Line back button.
Clean.
Hard.
making sure that they're on the right spot on this,
Back button.
on their own yellow rock for backing if they need it, but
Great shooting,
no
Brad.
backing necessary. Perfectly done by Jacobs. That will be a bit of a surprising two, finishing off that end. And Team Jacobs leads now 2-0 after 3 ends of play.
When it comes to the game we love, having the right gear makes all the difference.
Gold Line's new curling shoes and brooms are a game changer.
The shoes, unbelievably comfortable.
And the brooms, lightweight and effective, giving you control on every sweep.
When I step onto the ice, I'm not just prepared, I look sharp.
Have you seen these shoes? They are a game changer.
And the brooms, light as a feather.
It's a Gold Line.
It's a Gold Line.
It's a Gold Line.
And it's the choice of champions.
We got lots.
Skips deuce in the third end for Team Jacobs.
Meetings, eh? Just run the clock.
Brad ends up with the 2 points. So 2-0 Jacobs leads over Dunstone. Tyler George here with 7-time world champion Olympic gold medalist Nicholas Edin. Nick, we were talking about the decisions on those last couple shots there too, that you're really leaving yourself an all or nothing, no margin for error shot, as opposed to one where you get more control over it with the freeze. And, you know, again, if it's the shot you're comfortable with, that's all well and good, but really seems like Matt kind of cornered himself into the shot that is all on his head, where it's kind of made or missed out of hand.
Quick.
And it was not an easy pick either. The weight they threw or had to throw because they couldn't really see anything of that rock. But then if you ever got some curl after the guard, it was so likely to jam in the back. You really needed to hit just the paint off of that rock. So it was not an easy shot. And, kind of interesting in that end. We kind of talked about it. Brett Gallant rolling to that perfect corner. Would that come into play? And then maybe Dunstone hitting 1-2 early, letting that corner come into play. And then, yes, there are a few mistakes happening late in that end that allowed for the 2. But at the same time, we could kind of see that develop early in the game as well. So interesting end again there.
And the miss on Dunstone's last, too, in talking with Brent Lang earlier for the first couple broadcasts, he said from the practice time, because he is coaching Team McEwen here too, that those inside-out hits were really going hard towards the boards, or towards the outside of the sheet, should say. So we saw the wreck there. Is that something that you guys saw in practice too, or I don't know that you played it during the game at all, but those inside-out hits that were starting across the center line already were going hard towards the outside.
I think it's actually a little bit of a phenomenon as well. I think with the ice just being very level, you would see that a lot in big championships and the slams and arena kind of ice conditions when you flood the ice just before the event. In contrary to regular curling rings, we practiced a couple of days before this event, and that ice was curling way more towards the middle than to the boards, and that's, or to the wings, and that's what you normally see in curling rinks and where you maybe practice, so you get used to not seeing as much curl. But here it's going to curl the same everywhere, or very close to it, which allows for some curlers' technique maybe used to straighter to the wings, and then here they just get more curl than they would to the middle because of the technique.
Good start to the end for both teams here, with Team Jacobs right to the button and then a center guard. Corner and rock buried just behind the tee line for Team Dunstone. Good execution by both leads.
Yep. Hard, Ben. Hard.
This one really curling, going to the outside again.
Keep going. Mark. Red.
Yeah, this is more of the curling we want to see, I think. Some rocks in place, some traditional 2 on the center line and a corner and 1 behind it.
A really good sweep there, too, to get by the guards from Hebert and Kennedy. Never mind having Ben on the broom for you when you need to get by.
No, that man is a unit. Has the lungs to back it up, too, which is crazy. He's got a massive muscular body, if you will, and not easy to kind of have the endurance with that kind of power, but he has both, so he is for sure one of the best sweepers of all time, in my opinion.
I think wouldn't get too many arguments there. Yeah, Ben's, if not at the top, towards the top of anybody's all-time sweeping list.
I remember at the sweeping summit in 2016, he was one of the sweepers when we were testing all the materials and doing a lot of sweeping for us there. And when they had to go coast to coast, he was just dominant compared to all the other sweepers at that summit. He could go basically twice the distance before gassing out, and all the others
wrecks the curve.
he was impressive, to say the least, with that type of power to still be able to go that hard. Everyone was impressed by that, and yeah, that's why he's made a name for himself, being maybe one of the, if not the best sweeper ever.
Or you just, fuck, it's just crazy. Over the top, but that's...
A couple in the swear jar for this game, too. A little bit more colorful out there.
So.
Yeah. A little bit of passion.
Yeah.
I like the run, Brett, for sure.
Yeah. Onto the red.
Nose?
Yeah.
So even though that freeze wasn't made to get shot rock, Jacob's still
I see it pretty well, dead
trying to keep things as clean as possible, playing the run back. So Gallant playing red. He's trying to remove the corner and the rock in the rings.
Clean up. Whoa. Yep. Whoa. Yep. Whoa. Yep. Whoa.
Generally, those sweep calls are a good sign for the shooter. Yep, whoa, good.
Yeah, great shot there. Always the risk of stuffing it and maybe even leaving your shooter as a corner, but this one making the double, rolling slightly away.
And such a weapon to have, too, with the second that has that type of all-around game. We've seen Gallant make the soft ones and the up-weight shots already. But really, Nicholas, that's been the evolution of our sport, too, in the last 10, 15 years. That the seconds are the new thirds. That they need to have every shot in the book. Even before we switched to 5-rock for free guard zone rule, that was the case, that the game just got so strong, the ice conditions so good, the execution so good, that your third needs to have, or sorry, your second needs to have every shot in the book if you're going to compete at the elite level. And you certainly have that with your team as well, with Rasmus Rana. We're going to get through your entire lineup and say good things about him, except for Oscar, obviously.
Oh, poor Oscar. He does make a shot or two, though. So.
Well, we may have said he might be the best all-around shooter at that position in the game right now. So, I mean, we can't do it so many times that he's going to hear about it and get a big head, too. So, I know you don't want that by any means.
No, I wouldn't want to tell him straight up, but yeah. He makes some shots, that's for sure.
You won't disagree with it either.
But you're absolutely right. The seconds now, especially with the 5-rock rule, but also the level is just so high now that you can't get away with just having a second player that can only hit or favors the hit too much. They got to place the draws pretty perfectly now. So
this one really hooking hard to the outside. And does just paper the guard. And again, that's the miss that we've seen consistently so far in this tournament, with going inside out, being on the narrow side. You don't see that missed wide at all. So
I'd love to move it a bit.
Open maybe now for Dunstone.
Go here, he's throwing this hard.
And this is where earlier in the game the choice to freeze behind the corner instead of wrapping another one around top 8 makes a bit of a difference. Now the center is not nearly as useful for Team Jacobs. It's pretty easy for Dunstone to maneuver this guard and get the back shot rock that is on the button right now out of the way. And then basically just one lonely center guard helping Team Jacobs.
A big shot here for BJ Neufeld, trying to set up a multiple point end for Team Dunstone. And really, Nicholas, first time in this game outside of a couple shots in the third where they didn't have hammer and they were trying to force, that Dunstone has had the opportunity to attack.
Curl all the way. Whoa, straight. Hard roll.
Oh, clear that yellow stone, too, so now sitting 3.
And at least attacking without risk. They could have elected to attack a little bit earlier, but it wouldn't have come without risk. But here it's looking very risk-free at the moment. There's no way Jacobs is just going to ignore all the red there and come around their own center. So they're going to have to start making some doubles here and hopefully just get away with a deuce, as it's looking right now. Bit of a bonus if they can make some sort of roll behind the center or close to the center here as well.
Yeah, they're just looking to eliminate the second and third count. Roll a little middle, I think.
Mark will be close.
Yep, throwing the high, hard one.
Curl. Whoa. Curl.
A little misread there. And I kind of thought, too, that hitting 7/8 was kind of always jamming right where that was. It needed to either get over the top or thick, so the roll was there to roll in front of the red, probably. But
let's throw that 12-5.
Now still in trouble.
And they definitely wanted to stay on the other side of the guard so that when Dunstone hits it, the 3 reds are close together. They will have another easy opportunity at a double.
Yeah, that
rolling.
was really the ideal situation for Dunstone.
Whoa, whoa, clean.
Yeah, because now they can hit and roll to the open side, and there will be doubles available, but it's going to be much more difficult to get out of it. 2 points at least.
Clean. Whoa, curl. Whoa, curl. That's good. Shot.
And just playing it right to nose as there's no double coming back for Team Jacobs.
Okay, 12 and a half.
That's really good rock placement there, Nick. That's exactly where they wanted that rock to end up. They didn't want to roll under, leave the freeze to get out of the end. But there's no inside roll to kill more than one stone. It's just a roll underneath the center.
Yeah.
I think they probably had a bit of an either or there. They would have liked to roll out a little bit or make the nose hit to not leave a double. This makes for a very short little roll, though, so if Brad can be close on this and make the roll, then Matt's going to have to make a good one.
Yeah, rolling wide away would have been the ideal situation, but once you know it's not getting there, they left it in the one spot that actually isn't terrible, doesn't give your opponent an easier out.
And that's something at this level you have to be quick to switch. If it isn't ideal, you switch to the second best.
That's perfect. Great shot.
And good roll there. Nice shot from Jacobs. Now really no choice but to try to play to
We
nose.
just saw it with you, right? Right there with 12-5.
A roll in, I think, would be a pretty simple call for Jacobs to play the freeze, to try to get out of the end. Never a shot you want to play, freezing against the 4, but
I was going to say, I actually want to see that happening and see what the choice is.
Yeah.
I too think that the freeze is the best call, but if you ever miss it, you know that the 4 is in play, and that you can't afford to give up in the 4th end, so I wouldn't be super surprised if they went for the easy double in the back. It's a half a rock hit. So unless you know for sure you're going to make that freeze, but in the draw to the button path, they really should be close and should make it. But if you're not sure, I wouldn't be surprised if they played a double and just give up 2 instead of risking 4. Matt's got to make the little roll first, though.
Heavy.
Whoa.
Heavy. Curl.
see what Dunstone is able to pull off here with
Curl.
in turn,
Clean.
Whoa.
hack weight hit. Trying to get to at least
Right to
nose.
it. To it.
Whoa.
That's really well done. Good spot. Now there's
Pound
really
heavy,
no
eh?
freeze to play. So I think you're right here, Nick. They're just going to try to eliminate 2 stones and give 2. The safe play, your worst case then, would be giving up 3 as long as you make contact. So
Or a little less.
Brad expects to make this, but yeah, you need to take 4 out of the picture. And with where that rock ended up, this is very likely the shot that Jacobs was playing all along, even if they made the roll in.
Yeah, I really would have wanted to see Matt flop just a couple of inches in there and see what the decision would have been. I think it would have been interesting to see, but I think in this situation when the freeze just isn't there, even if you make it, it's going to be too easy to pick it out. So double, probably the only sensible call here.
Brad Jacobs' final stone of the first half of this game. He's playing the double.
Yep. Hard breath. Whoa.
Trying to eliminate 2 reds and hold Dunstone to a draw for 2. Makes no mistake. So the smart play, even though it's been the conservative play for Team Jacobs for most of this first half, that's absolutely the right call for playing the scoreboard. So after all this,
Guys, throwing this
Dunstone
turn,
with a
like
draw to the
that.
paint or his
We
second
hadn't
counter.
touched this out turn in a bit. Yeah, I was thinking I'll just give you what I gave you on that wing draw.
Nick, I think if you're Team Dunstone, you're probably pretty happy right now with this first half going the way it has, being tied up, with Jacobs controlling the action for most of the way. You're still going to have a chance now, very likely, get your 2 and be tied up at the break.
And also getting this 2 right back in the 4th end, that makes a big difference. If they can force Jacobs in the next end, they are at least have a chance to get back in control in the 6th end.
Final stone of the first half.
Line's never an issue.
At Dunstone, in turn draw.
Line's good.
Needs to touch paint for 2.
Line's good. We're on our own.
That feels like he doesn't need to watch this one. It's made. He's going to beat the rock to the other end. Generally a good sign.
Or you just really got to pee.
It's entirely possible, too. We'll keep an eye on his actions at the break and update you in the 5th. Yep. But it is 2-2, a tie score. Jacobs will have the hammer coming out of the 4th.
When you've conquered another game, a long day, a job well done, and the final work call, we're your place. Come as you are and fit in comfortably. Mr. Mice, eat locally, enjoy casual.
Just keep plugging away here.
Why the fuck are they doing that? It's a fucking joke. You can hardly fucking clocks running.
Back from the break. Our second half of action for our feature matchup. Matt Dunstone, Brad Jacobs tied at 2. Start of the 5th.
We gotta go a bit for 2/3.
We are live from the Silent Ice Center in Nisku, Alberta, in the shadow of Edmonton. Second event of the Grand Slam season, Co-op Canadian Open. Tyler George here with Nicholas Edin. And Nicholas, we said leading into the break that for Team Dunstone, I think they probably feel pretty good at 2-2 coming out of the first half. For Team Jacobs, controlling the action as much as they did, I don't think they're frustrated by any means, but they probably feel like the score is maybe a little bit not as shaded their way as they would expect with how much they dictated the game.
Yeah, I think the first 3 ends played right to Team Jacobs. They wanted to keep it simple, wanted to get a few blanks on the board, maybe force Team Dunstone to go for the bigger risk, and got that early lead with a 2, kind of out of nothing. Looking at the ends, no team really took their chances early, but getting that 2-0 lead It was always going to be tough to come back from, but 2 right back from Dunstone, so back in a tight game. This should be an interesting second half for sure.
With this 5th end of action, and Dunstone really wanting to push the action on Jacobs. Now 2 center guards. Seeing our first tick of the tournament. And the reason they're able to play this shot is that rock is not touching the center line. So we have the no-tick zone. Relatively new for our sport, where if a rock in the first 5 shots of the end is touching the center line, you cannot move it off the center line. But that stone crossed. So this is a tick opportunity for Ben Hebert.
Clean. It's good.
And interesting to see the strategy change there. In the 3rd end, we saw the same first 2 rocks, but then electing to play the hit and roll with Brian Harnden's 2nd rock, but now going for 2 center guards. So if that's just a case of being a little later in the game, feeling they need to take more risk or set up some more chances, or kind of noticing it didn't work out the last time.
Right. That tick does just barely hang on. That rock doesn't get to the board, so had that red stone touched the sideboards, it would have had to go back to where it was, as you can tick it, but you can't remove it from play still. Free guard zone rule still exists.
Line's great.
So trying to replace the center guard now for Team Dunstone. Colton Lott really need to carry this one to get it over the hog line.
Keep going hard. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, really good sweep from
Great sweep, guys.
Arnden and Neufeld to get that over, and such a big difference for the end, Nicholas, to have that rock over. Otherwise, it's just a peel for Team Jacobs on the other center guard and playing out for a likely blank again.
Looks to me that the tighter center is very possible to remove instead of this high one, which would be very problematic for Team Dunstone. Just one very high center guard to work with.
Yeah, and then you have to decide, are we still throwing another tight center underneath it? Or are we risking giving up a 2 or a 3 if you're doing it too late in the end? But the way that Jacobs has played this entire game, it'd be awfully surprising if they didn't elect to continue to peel.
But that is also something you gotta make a decision about. Do you take that opportunity when you can see a little bit of the tighter center? Or do you peel the top one thinking we can take it later, but you might not get the chance to if Dunstone keeps playing these high centers perfectly in line? You have no choice basically but to keep peeling them until you make the switch to come around instead. But then at the same time, if you don't make that, the 2 centers is a big problem.
So peeling the top one once again. Good placement for Team Dunstone with lining those up so that there isn't a double peel.
Just clean. Attaboy. Good throw, Brett.
It's a matter of, for Dunstone, of how aggressive do you want to play this end? Looks like they're not willing to take the risk to go around. They're still going to hit the open one.
Just nose.
They're just playing for nose. And the reason they're playing for nose here is if they play to nose and you get a nose back from Team Jacobs, and that rock is off the rings, then it makes your decision very easy to come around the center. You're not playing against a 2 anymore.
And to me, I think, again, this is one rock too early. I think if they play another center guard,
just keep going, Colt.
you're definitely going to see Team Jacobs just peeling that center, and you can make this move later.
10.5, Mark.
Get it, Mark.
And hey, long roll is good too. 10.5.
Get it on the line. You're looking for a.
You see them trying to carve at the end of that shot, knowing they weren't going to get nose. They decided, let's roll it as far as we can. So it was a little plan B for Team Dunstone. And now for Kennedy, you heard Jacobs say, we're playing the roll, and the long roll is okay. You'd rather roll behind the T line open on the opposite side than roll short and leave that same roll under cover for Dunstone above the tee.
Curl. Whoa, you're good.
That's perfect.
Great shot. Beauty.
Really good shot from Kennedy. And that's exactly why they wanted to nose before. They don't want to leave that roll
Like firm.
for Team Jacobs. They wanted to play it themselves later or be able to play the draw. And now they're forced into playing the run instead. So that roll by Kennedy takes control back of the end for Team Jacobs. And Nicholas, that's kind of been the way the game has gone, that they've made the bigger shot to dictate the action for the first 5.
Curl.
Maybe also a couple of decisions. It's obviously a little bit of a strategy from both teams not to take too much risk, let the opposition have a crack at something easy. So kind of taking away that risk a little earlier in the end than we would see some other teams do.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's a bit of an error there from Neufeld. You won't be happy with that throw. That's really nowhere near making the run.
Yep.
And with the guard out of play, now it's all rock placement for Team Jacobs, trying to figure out where can we position these stones to get our 2. Nick, where's your ideal spot if you're throwing this shot?
I think you want to be close to coming around that wide guard. It's not covering much of the house, but if you can get somewhere close to it, it makes the whole situation a little more tricky. If this is fully open, you will see Dunstone hit this wide one to roll into the middle.
We have a little bit of room, actually.
You don't want to play this too safe. If this is just wide open, it makes it a lot easier for Dunstone to roll back to the middle and maybe get a double.
And dead even up. Really well done.
10-5.
Yeah, as you said, you're not playing to bury necessarily and cut yourself out of house, but no reason not to get it close to that guard at least and get as much distance between these 2 rocks as possible. Because all Dunstone is trying to do with this shot now is roll to a spot that may give him a double on his last.
Because even if you roll to here, it's really good.
And just that half a rock more curl makes this shot so much tougher, especially since we've seen a few shots going to the wing. Just take that a little bit of extra curl maybe and reckon on a guard. If this is half buried, it's a much tougher shot to take on, and they might not even play on that shot. They might hit the center one and roll, but being wide open, this is an easy hit, and hopefully they can roll towards the other one and get a double on the next.
And Dunstone believes that this is the best way to set up the double as opposed to hitting the number 1, where if you roll towards that stone, Jacobs can still roll all the way away and create as much distance as possible. Matt Dunstone's first to roll close to center line.
Hard. Roll it, Go.
That's pretty good. It's going to be awfully tough for Jacobs to not leave a very makeable double for Dunstone now. I don't believe, Nicholas, there's a spot he can roll this to where there isn't a double.
Does that make things
No, definitely not. But I think if you can roll with a little bit of softer weight, roll really wide to the 12-foot, it's going to be pretty steep still.
Yeah.
So to make this good, I mean, 1.5 hitting in here.
We're even talking about rolling the other way for the same purpose, though. They're trying to make the angle as steep as possible, and it looks more natural rolling the other way to get that kind of 45-degree angle where it's thin, both on the in and outside.
Yeah, I like this call here from Jacobs. There really isn't a great spot to roll to on the side of the sheet that stone is on. So it's a little riskier to play towards your own stone that you have to roll a ways, but the end result is the best by far. If you can roll this all the way to the back of the 12-foot on this opposite side, then the double's going to be far more difficult than it would be anywhere you'd roll on the side that Kennedy's on.
Drill, clean, straight. Roll it, you gotta roll it.
Gotta go.
Not as far as they would have liked. Double still there, obviously. And again, if that rolls another 1.5 feet, that double is considerably more difficult.
It's kind of that risk-reward kind of thing. They took on a double that it really has to roll pretty far. It's kind of useless all the way until it's perfect. But the other double then, or rolling the other way, then you would always force Matt making a double, but it was always going to be a makeable double. If Brad would have rolled a little bit farther on this side, it would have been a really, really thin double that you might not even try because it's not worth the risk.
If you're wondering why this sport frustrates us as much as it does, Nicholas's last comment about it's useless until it's perfect is kind of a microcosm of our sport as a whole. I might steal that one. So final shot for Dunstone, trying to make this double. Always like hearing clean when you're throwing that shot. No problem from Matt. So still mission accomplished for Team Jacobs. They get their blank here in the fifth. And Nick, this is really, I would say, the first time that an average curling team starts thinking even end, odd end for Hammer playing the rest of the game. Is the fifth in an 8-end game. Obviously the seventh is the big one, but getting that blank here for Brad, now you're playing a 3-end game and you have Hammer in 2 of those ends. Jacobs this time picking the out turn just off the edge of the forefoot to get a look at.
10.
So they do get their blank. They will carry Hammer to the 6th, tied up 2-2.
Comes to the game we love, having the right gear makes all the difference.
Goldline's new curling shoes and brooms are a game changer.
The shoes, unbelievably comfortable.
And the brooms, lightweight and effective, giving you control on every sweep.
When I step onto the ice, I'm not just prepared, I look sharp.
Have you seen these shoes? They are a game changer.
And the brooms, light as a feather.
It's a gold line.
It's a gold line.
It's a gold line.
And is the choice of champions.
This is a fast for a spring game. First stone on the way, 6th end of action. Ryan Harden trying to get another guard up to start this end. We are tied 2-2. Jacobs will have Hammer. Tyler George here with Nicholas Edin. And Nick, we were just starting to talk about the odd end, even end play strategy-wise for the second half of the game. If you're playing a 10-end game, you're really kind of starting to think about it in the 7th. But it's the last 4 ends where that comes into play. But we'll talk a little bit about why we're positioning the way we are in these final 4 ends to get Hammer in the even ends in a close game.
Yeah, and I think obviously in that 5th end, we saw Dunstone put up double center guards, so they really wanted to get a force out of Team Jacobs. And we didn't see that in the 3rd end, and like you said, that's very early to start thinking about the odd and even ends, but at the same time, when you're playing a team that is openly conservative with their strategy, they really want to go for the blanks early, and to just play that hit and roll in the 3rd end, actually giving up a 2-point as well. You kind of noticed in the 5th there, they really changed the strategy to really try and get the force. And the problem for Team Dunstone is that they didn't get the force out of it in the 5th, and now they basically only have one more chance. They have to make something happen in that 7th end as it's looking right now. First of all, maybe get a blank out of this end, and then get that force. So now they only have that one try, possibly. So maybe looking back at it, they might regret not playing the double centers already in the 3rd end, even though it seems very aggressive. But against this team, I think maybe that's what you kind of need to do instead of hitting or rolling and letting the blanks happen too much.
Yeah, and the simple curling math, too, says that if you're playing tied up in the 6th end without the hammer, you're going to have to score a 2 or get a steal in one of these 3 ends in order to win the game. If you're Team Jacobs, you don't have to do that. You could score 1, give 1, score 1, and you win the game. Or you could score 1, your opponent blanks, they get their 1, and then you still score in the extra. Every way it maps out math-wise, the team that has hammer in 6th in a tie game has a big advantage trying to win.
Clean, curl, slow, curl.
And especially at the highest level when the ice conditions are good. Looking at those numbers, say top 10 teams in the world, and the numbers would be favoring the team with hammer, tied game in 6th, quite a bit more than people think.
What's that, Mark? 10.5?
So trading hits early here for Jacobs, and this is a little more understandable with dictating the action, where for Brad, they're just looking to take whatever opportunities they get, but not pressing too much and giving Team Dunstone that opportunity that we talked about, Nick, where, again, if you're not giving up a steal in this end, you're in good shape. Taking a point here is not a bad thing, and I'd be interested to see, because we've seen both, whether or not they would elect to blank or take the point in 6. I've always been more take that point and take the lead going to the 7th.
Well, I just felt like I threw it a little quiet.
For Brad, he can afford to be patient now. He doesn't have to do anything extraordinary to win this game. They just have to make simple shots and take opportunities, and don't give Dunstone any chance to flip the script by getting that steal.
10-4.
Absolutely, that steal is massive in the 6th end, so that's just something that Team Jacobs has to avoid.
So if this plays out and they do have the opportunity to blank or take the point, which side of the coin would you be on in that decision?
I would, especially in a game like this, I think, like considering the opponents and the ice conditions being very nice and the speed is consistent, it's easy to draw, then I would prefer the blank, keeping the hammer, keeping the initiative. If I score 1, I would be a little bit afraid that blank in 7 will happen, and then even if you're up 60%, it's kind of, or at least I think that's what Dunstone wants to be in, to have a chance of scoring his 2 to take the game away from Team Jacobs here. I would rather want to keep the hammer in this and kind of have it in my own hands, and then if we can get a blank again in 7th, it's game over.
And they've shown the ability to blank this entire game too, which makes a big difference. Yeah, there's no curling 101 call for that situation. You'll see teams elect to do one or the other based on what their numbers bear out as, or what they have for a feel from the game. And to your point, Nicholas, this type of game is exactly the type of situation where if you feel like you've been able to blank all game and you have a good chance of doing it again in 7, your chances of winning the game are extremely high, obviously, if you go blank. Obviously, scoring 2 in this end or in the 7th gives you a high percentage chance as well, but it also, if you played a more aggressive end, would give your opponent more of a chance to get that steal. So I think, yes, what you're saying there, the way this game is played out, playing it for the blank makes the most sense.
Good.
That doesn't mean that you're not taking the opportunity to get that roll, though, too, and that's a good safe spot to roll to. Top 8 foot.
And looking at it from Dunstone's perspective, I think they need to get something happen too, not just letting the blanks happen and control staying in Jacob's corner. So even if it is the 6th end and kind of Jacob scoring a point, it's kind of good for them, but also if you look at it as it's still a force, they don't get 2 points and you get the hammer back, you get a little bit of control back. So if you can blank that 7th after that, I think Jacobs is going to be a little bit worried going into the 8th end then.
Really need to stick this here. Does stay on the paint. That's extremely important that Red Rock doesn't roll out of the house. If that goes out, this end is over. They're peeling that guard, and we're moving on to the 7th with the blank. So good sweep. Keep that in play. Jacobs will immediately go over to hit that rock. And Nick, do you ever, if this is on the nose, and we get to skip stones, are you ever thinking about playing that draw around the center?
I would be all over that center guard, I tell you, but I'm probably 50-50 if I would have to guess what they're going to do.
Hard still.
That wouldn't have been aligning to the strategy we've seen so far.
I was going to say I expect them to hit pretty much immediately here. And it's a little dicey too with the height of that guard. It's just high enough that it's difficult to throw it any deeper than top 8 and have it be something that they can't dig out, even if the line is perfect. So I think if that guard was even a foot and a half tighter, you might see Dunstone think about the draw. But I just don't think he thinks there's a good spot to throw that 1-2 that doesn't bring 2 into the picture. So they're just going to hit this out. Obviously, if we get to his last and it's a similar situation, he's going all out for the roll to try to get underneath, regardless of where the rock is that he's hitting. But if he's not drawing on this one, he's not drawing on his last, if there's a Jacobs rock in the house.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think the only good spot, if you elect to draw here, is to kind of be biting the 8-foot. And really what that does is you're kind of playing for the force anyway, so it's not changing the complexity a whole lot unless you get a bit of a stuff or a bit of a half miss, leaving that 8-foot rock, and then you can maybe come around it and take your chances of a missed double.
I thought Mark was a bit of 10 out here. Okay.
Very unlikely we would see something like that in a game like this. But I do think, though, that if Jacobs gets the blank here, it's a massive advantage for Team Jacobs to win this game at the end of it.
Out-turn, hit and stick attempt from Jacobs. Again, incredibly important to stick here on this shot. As long as it's on the paint, they're in good shape. Just enough.
Just got to make a little roll.
Just a short 6-foot roll.
Yeah. How's that look? Even less, maybe?
I think here 9-5. I think it's close.
Okay.
And the good thing for Dunstone too, with where this rock is the roll with just a regular normal weight will end up in a really good height or depth for this stone underneath the guard. You got to bury as much as possible to not leave Jacobs the blank attempt. Extremely difficult roll.
Yeah, how many would you think Matt makes of this?
To bury, I would say a make would be considered more than half of the rock buried. I think you're hoping for a 2 out of 10, maybe on this.
Yeah, I would agree. He will be close a lot of the times, but for it to actually stay more than half buried so the blank isn't automatic, very, very tough shot. You wouldn't see much more than a couple out of 10, I don't think.
Yeah, and that's really an inch off of being perfect, too, with where they hit that stone. It's just so little margin for error with a roll that long. So Jacobs, once again, mission accomplished with keeping things open. I like what Brad's saying there, too, Nick, that he's saying exactly how much he wants to hit, even though there's a huge spot on the rock he can hit to get the blank. He's being precise about a simple shot.
Yeah, I think that's something all curlers should do, even for the simple shots. You should not play it just in a rough area. You should pick a spot, be precise, and be focused.
Does exactly that. Half a rock, rolls off. They get their blank. Score will remain 2-2 going to the 7th. Jacobs retains hammer.
I've stood at the pinnacle of curling and battled in the most intense games.
Out on the ice, there's no room for compromise.
And when the pressure's on, every millimeter counts.
It's not just a game.
It's about maximizing performance,
Pushing limits.
Seizing victory.
When victory hangs in the balance,
I know what I'm relying on.
It's a gold line. It's a gold line. It's a gold line.
And it's the choice of champions.
Another blank on the board. We've had 4 of them in this game, all by Team Jacobs. They are tied 2-2 playing the 7th here against Matt Dunstone. Both teams' first game of the Co-op Canadian Open. First stone on the way here for Ryan Harnden and Nicholas. No doubt about what they'll be throwing here. This is a all-out force or steal end for Team Dunstone. If they allow Team Jacobs to blank again, odds will be heavily in Jacobs' favor.
Yeah, for sure. I think no matter what Team Jacobs elects to do here, Dunstone have to go all in to put a score on the board, even if it's a 2 for Jacobs. That's probably better than another blank.
Yeah, that's something we've seen with win percentage odds since the game has switched to 5 rock free guard zone rule. Is
Top 8, top 4.
teams believe, and rightfully so with what we've seen in the numbers, that it's more likely to get a 3 in the final end than it is to get a steal. And if you get a 2, you still have the opportunity to steal in the extra too. But you don't have to go back too far to see odds playing out with the 4 rock rule, I would think, more in favor of trying to steal in the final end than trying to get a 3.
And that also is a lot up to the teams being on the ice, what kind of strengths and qualities they have, and also the ice conditions. And when the ice conditions are really good and consistent, and the teams are really strong at the defensive game, and then also maybe making a last draw type of shot, the odds of stealing against a team like that go way, way down, and it would be much less than people think. A lot of the early percentages we kind of learn in curling at maybe juniors and the slightly lower level than this, then you might have something like 20 or 25% to steal in an extra or in a tight game. I think in this situation, if they get to the 8th end tied with Jacobs' hammer, I don't think you have much more than 5% to win the game anymore.
Line's good. Line's good. Line's good.
Perfect start to this end by both leads. 2 great, very separated centered guards by Ryan Harnden, and 2 perfect come-around draws by Ben Hebert.
Just throw like T on your own. Just T line.
And Nicholas for Team Dunstone now, you need to keep as many rocks in play as possible, especially around the center line, but those rocks need to move in order for you to be able to steal. So where exactly do you want to tap these rocks to set yourself up for the next shot?
I think this is a tricky situation. It all depends on the height of the rocks in the house and how tight that tighter guard is, how much you can move the top yellow. They really want to move the top yellow, not kind of freeze to one of them. That they want to move the top yellow to get in with the next one. So I think that they just try to get to as much of a pick or a nose hit they possibly could with as much weight as they could get there with.
Like that? He's going here next, no matter what. Like, we can peel the top, but we can go there.
I like going there.
What's that?
I like beating him.
We draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good plate.
Yeah. That's a shot.
I definitely did not expect this to happen.
Yeah, this is a... Now they're going to talk a little more about it. They really want to make sure this is the right call.
Well, no, but like, this is obviously jamming. Easy triple.
Yeah, that's good. That's a shot.
They talk about if they peel the guard here, the next shot will be a freeze on the yellow that is top 4 on the center line. I'm not sure that's the best move because of the other yellow being so lined up on it. It would be so easy to remove later on. I would think you would try to tap something more back to set something up a little later that cannot be removed.
Probably might even be quicker than that now.
So I'm a little surprised actually they're going to draw in here first, just really going for 3 points here. Then they kind of don't want to score 2 points either. They would rather blank than scoring 2, I'm assuming. Knowing Mac Dunstone also, they've scored a lot of threes to turn games around. They must be the team that have scored the most threes, being down 2 to turn it to a win.
I know for a fact in the qualifier, the C qualifier game in the first slam that they were down 2 to Schuster playing the last end and got 3. So it is something they're good at, but yeah, I'm definitely surprised too, Nick, that the way they've played this entire game now, changing gears in the 7, and that's solely based on rock position, looking at where things are lined up. If we draw now, do we have them in jail? What do they do? But yeah, the way they've played the entire game and how well they've played those shots to blank, it's definitely a bit of a surprise that they're going for the throat now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we're seeing a change in strategy and a point of the game where it might really backfire.
Hard line's great. Come on. Hard beach. Hard beach. Anything past this yellow.
So now Team Jacobs all in instead of Dunstone being all in. Jacobs now leaving the 2 centers, and it's pretty much always going to be too late to start hitting them now. Dunstone, though, with a bit of a miss there. Or Team Dunstone, I should say, with a draw ending up well short. Bit of a stagger, makes it tricky for both teams, though.
Our fellow commentator, who's not in the booth list tonight, John Cullen, texts in that Dunstone also won in the quarters of that slam down 2 and got a 3.
Yeah, I remember they did that twice in the same event, which should be unheard of, but I just think Team Dunstone, they are really good at scoring 3 when they're down 2. They've done it more times as well, and I think
they did it to Brad in that quarterfinal game.
Yeah, and with that in mind, I'm actually really surprised that Team Jacobs are going for a score here. If they score 3, obviously the game probably is over.
I don't mind peeling.
Only scoring 2, it's a big advantage percentage-wise, but knowing Team Dunstone, they're very good at setting up situations where they might get a chance of 3 back and steal the game away. First things first, though, interesting situation here. What do Jacobs want to do here? Dunstone still sitting shot on the T-line.
I gotta make sure I roll further than here, probably. Roll here. Sure.
So hit and roll away. Let's say you make a good one. Is he just coming around? What's that?
It's early. Let's freeze. You think? Good here?
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be great. You like this shot? Love it. That's good.
You can't see a fucking ton of this yellow over here.
Now this would have been a hard game to bet on what kind of strategy they would want to play here. Having seen the first 5-6 ends of this game, and then in the 7th end, that's when I really would have put my money on Team Jacobs wanting to blank. And now they're going kind of all in to win the game here or let Dunstone have a chance.
Of all ends to do it in, this is probably the most surprising one. So just playing the freeze. Brett Gallant trying to lock onto this red stone.
Knife it.
Curl, Ben.
Hard, Benny.
Very likely guarding
Curl,
for
Ben.
their
Curl,
lives
Ben. Curl, curl, curl.
for Dunstone.
Okay, good.
I think if they can lock a freeze in there now, it's starting to look dicey for Team
I think
Jacobs.
so, A-Beach?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they didn't sweep that a little more, and they'd be sitting 2 if they tapped it another 3 inches.
He just does that. At least it gives us something.
This kind of reminds me a lot of that 2009 World's Final.
Yeah.
Murdoch against Martin, right, where the 2 centers were left in play, right or wrong, but it kind of turned into a situation looking somewhat similar to this now. And in most cases, I think Jacobs would score a couple here, but this is kind of also the opportunity that Dunstone is hoping for. A lot of rocks in play, and if they play every shot from here on in, they have a pretty good chance of doing something good, either a force or a steal.
So following the same path, DJ Neufeld playing the intern come around.
Back foot, back four. Room. Go ahead, Pete. Go ahead,
Still
Pete.
a lot of room,
Go
needs to
ahead,
curl.
straight. Really come straight.
Now it's turning hard.
Gotta go. Hard, guys. Hard, Colt. Hard!
He touched that.
I think he touched that
Yellow
yellow.
stone, yeah.
Replay. Yeah,
I think that's pretty much where it was.
that's the perfect tap.
Yep. Well
So
done, Brad.
that's a problem.
Do we got?
And these all go right now.
Yeah, very interesting
Yeah,
lineup of those yellow
Yeah,
stones.
that's what I
It's
was
a
thinking too.
very, very easy triple. It's so automatic. You just got to make contact. Anything
one? This
thick
one?
on
Well,
the
it's
top
always making
yellow,
contact here
all
first,
3
Brady.
goes.
Back four.
We gotta keep our shooters.
Yep, back four, right on the
You
nose.
need more weight than back 4.
Back 8, okay.
I agree with a little more weight. You give yourself a little more margin for error, and you have a 2-rock transfer where you're not
Back
probably
8.
getting to the nose of that stone. So you have to make sure you're tapping it far enough to get shot and moving the angle around too. So this is not a shot you want to be light on.
Well,
And at the same time, this is kind of not the shot you even want to be playing, because now they're opening up that out-turn side that has been blocked off with the centers. That is that are too late to be removed. If this tap is played a little bit too hard, or they opening up a little bit too much, one rock will be coming behind the tee line, one is rolling away too far, one might sit in the open. This can go wrong.
So intern tap from Kennedy. And Nick, to your point too, when these rocks pile up around the center like this, you don't want to be the team that moves those angles around and let your opponent counter whatever you throw. But they have no choice in this situation because of the way the angles are set up now.
Sit. Good shot. Beauty.
He played a really nice shot there. Perfect speed, at least. If he would have got that same contact point with just a hair more speed, it would have almost been a disaster. Now they kind of stay close enough. Everything is still in good enough positions, but not risk-free.
This one?
I think that's the best, isn't it? I mean, it's
really hard.
Borderline whether that's there.
I don't think it actually is. I don't think so. You'd have to throw it a couple times, I think, to...
It's probably just there.
Getting on the nose of this any good?
Ooh, that's a tough shot.
Like, I don't think we give a shit about this anymore. Like,
just hard to get to nose. I roll away at all. It's a complete disaster.
Yeah, I don't like opening this in here up for him right away.
If you ask me, they gotta keep looking on that out-turn side. That's where the next play is.
Is it ever stupid to make a play on?
Tons of time for both teams on the clock. No issue there, which we would expect with this many blanks.
You think it ever comes into that? No. You want to call timeout here?
Sure.
Timeout?
They're going to call time just to talk this one over. No reason not to with 2 timeouts left.
I think they are kind of forced on making that first call they looked at. Nestle in, either getting to nose on the middle yellow of the 3 lined up on the line there on the left,
here to make something off of
or wiggle off the top one thin to kind of go through the tight port yellow-red, kind of nestle in on top of the 2 yellows on the close to the tee line.
Well, first thought was this.
It's a tough shot. No margin, but I think you
Like, I wonder, just what if we make this for now?
dance with the girl you took to the dance.
It's not bad, actually. That's actually pretty good shot. I think it's pretty good, man.
Just hit and roll off the 5.
Just roll a rock.
Like, just leave. I think we want to leave this just a little open. Like, edge on edge, 7/8 open, so we can throw something hard once he makes that, right? Like, I think this is really good for us right now.
I think we don't want to really mess with that. I think that's the shot.
Like, just hit it a hair low. Like, are you seeing that?
I think so.
Like, if we just planted right to here.
Yeah.
I just wonder what he has off of that and in. Like, if we get into here, it just might be boop boop.
Yeah, like I even think just guard against the overroll. Like even if we just roll it like an inch, I still think it's not bad. Right? Like
Yeah.
Right?
You guys on board with that? Like, I just don't want to get it into a spot where he can throw this hard and it works out really good, but I guess we're still making an intern freeze.
Okay, I like this just like ever so slightly low.
11-5?
Yeah,
12-5?
Yeah, I think 12-5.
Very interesting here. I would have thought they want to nestle in somewhere in the middle here. I think you could even play kind of like a up normal kind of weight, hit half a rock on that top yellow to nudge the back of your red, and then continue forward onto the 2 yellows on the tee line. For me, it's either that or the soft one, just nudge the top one, nestle in, but they're going to play just a hit and roll to sit in front of the 4-foot.
It's interesting that they're just conceding that short run, too. That they're going to play this. What can we leave ourselves afterwards?
No roll. A little bit. Yeah.
So the whole point of that shot for Dunstone was just to give them something to play in, assuming that Jacobs is going to play this yellow-red.
Yeah. I just think it might actually make contact with the 2.
I don't think so, Brad, because you're hitting it high side.
How?
I think if Mark gets by that relatively skinny, it's pulling it this way. It's spinning into here.
Regardless, if it does plant, it opens up this. He's playing this, right? That's the shot, Mark. Is it?
But how much weight? Yeah, okay.
He's got to hit that top red
What are we trying
very,
to hit
very
here?
thick. He's
Hit
got to
what we
hit
can
all
see?
he can see if he wants the yellow to move towards the other red.
Yeah, that's the action that they think they're going to get with this is
not
I mean,
there.
generally, this shoots the rock more like sideways than it does backwards with the way these are angled. So
yeah, the thinner he hits, the more in-turn rotation that top red will get to pull the yellow one to the right. And so if they hit it anything too thin, it won't go anywhere. It'll just dead stop on the other one. But maybe if they can hit it thick enough, all that he can see, they can maybe wiggle it into the open a little bit.
We'll see if they get the action they expect to.
Yep.
Kennedy throwing this hard.
Hard, Ben. Really gotta go. Really gotta go. Hard!
And he could do just that. He hit all he could see, and that was a great call, great shot, even better shot, actually. That was incredibly tough to do. Got all the action he wanted there. Not sure if that was good or bad, though.
I'm not sure if I like that.
I think we're getting this locked onto here now.
I think so.
Yeah, I think now if you play
Yeah,
that
it's like
red,
right on the
it
nose with
spills in right to locked in.
board, like 11-5.
Yeah, it's 11-5 or wants and whatever he wants.
Yeah.
So you heard 11-5 too. Like they just want to play it soft enough that it's
I want to
controlling that roll
if anything, like
off that higher yellow to freeze on
I agree.
number 1.
Like 11-5.
And they really don't want to move the middle yellow one too much either, because then there might be a run on the double. Both reds could be removed possibly, so they just want this to nestle up on a freeze.
11-5.
You really have to pay attention to where you leave the shooter here as well. So they're trying to hit nose. They don't want to roll away at all because that would leave a double right back.
And if they actually hit nose, then it depends a lot on where the other rock is rolling to. If that's on a freeze, but not kind of on the side of it, if it's a dead frozen rock in the same line as the center line, there might be a triple there back. So they not only need to hit nose, but also have the roll into the perfect freeze onto shot rock, not to leave a triple back.
Heavy.
Clean.
Whoa.
Clean, yep.
Heavy.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Curl.
Really trying to get this to nose.
Curl. Curl.
No roll.
That's interesting. Came back up off that stone a little bit.
You can definitely make that double, but the thing here now is that they need to hit it so thin so that they continue downwards a little bit to nibble the button.
Yeah, you really want that stone to stick right there on the double, not kick back up.
Yeah, okay. Peel weight with the in.
Ben,
Yeah, I was thinking the in.
Fuck no. Yeah.
You? I just think that it's
Glant
spin,
doesn't
right?
like this call. He wants to chat a little more about it.
I was thinking soft. I mean, I know if you like peel, I'm okay, but
with peel, we're probably spinning here.
Yeah,
He
okay.
loves the intern freeze. It's a really tough dose.
And that's exactly the point Mark is there. If you play this double, it's an easy double. He will make this
Like a normal?
maybe not 10 out of 10, but close to it. But the thing is, if you spin away a little bit, you might leave that intern freeze.
Let me see the
That's where you need to hit a
normal.
little
Yeah.
thinner.
Quarter?
And I think they're just playing normal, too, from what they said. They're not throwing peel like they were initially talking about.
Normal is a good weight that we can.
Sure.
So kind of, I think Brett's reaction kind of slowed things down a little bit there, too. And did it at the right time, didn't wait till they're coming down the ice. So I think everybody's on the same page now. This whole end is like a game in itself.
I was going to say that this end is taking longer than the rest of the game together.
Intern normal weight double from Jacobs, looking to hit about a quarter of that red stone in the 8-foot.
Beauty.
That's well done. That red stone extremely lonely in the back of the 4-foot now. I think you have to freeze to the pocket of these two now. And just hope that there's no angle to lose both.
Just freeze on the nose of ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if that shot was nearly
How's that look?
perfectly made, you could
yeah, I mean,
see
it's
it hitting
close
just a
wherever I-
fraction
Yeah.
too thick
Yeah,
still and
that's you.
kind of nibbling away an inch or two,
Maybe a hair more.
allowing this
Okay, I
freeze.
like that.
If it would have gone downwards just a millimeter,
Just a
it wouldn't have been
little bit crunchier
anything.
here.
Team Dunstone.
Like I had 14-7 on Beaches.
Yeah, and
It's
I probably came down a bit for
Kip.
hard.
This freeze has to be made though. It's not the easiest shot.
40
And
Kip.
it has to get to at least nose, too. If it's staggered even the slightest bit on the outside, it's game over.
Yeah, top tee right in front of it. Front of the red.
So you need to get to nose or inside, but also can't overcurl and wreck. It becomes a kind of a tough 2 for Jacobs if this is made. I think the yellow tap is probably still there, but much more difficult.
You can probably tap the outturn one to the top 4 rock is fairly makeable, but at the same time, if this freeze is made perfectly, you can't afford to bounce your shot rock too much.
Close for line.
Dunstone's
Back
final
forward, no
stone.
room.
Intern
Line's
freeze
good.
attempt.
Rail board.
Line's
Back line.
good. Line's good. Yep.
I've seen these take a hard turn right about that point, and that one does too.
Room.
Doesn't want to bounce too much. Well, time to look at all the angles and see if there's any way to get them both to go.
No chance.
No, I think you got a tap for 2. That's. It is, however, a little more makeable now, pushing that red one back just a couple of inches. It's now you can afford to hit a little bit more weight. The shot rock yellow will just stop dead on the red.
We just gotta tell them what the weight is.
Let me see
So you got slightly more margin speed-wise to play this a little too heavy. Not much though. It's still not a gimme. You can't use the backing too much. Can't roll away with the one you send in.
Mark was about here on his.
What do we think of that?
I think, what weight are you trying to throw? Where are you trying to be?
Back 4?
I think it's minimum for back 4, but.
Yeah, I agree with Brett there. It's back 4 is the absolute least amount of weight you can play on this shot because you're only hitting probably half a stone. So Jacobs throwing this out-turn chisel.
Minimum weight.
Just trying to chip that stone.
Back 8, back 12.
The touching button. Back 8 weight is still fine with how much they're hitting. Back 12 is getting a little dicey.
Back 12. Back 12.
Looks pretty good. That's really well done. Great judge, great throw, good team shot, and they do indeed get their 2 after that marathon of an end. Team Jacobs now leads Team Dunstone 4-2, coming home to the 8th.
Hey, great shot.
When you've conquered another game, a long day, a job well done, and the final work call, we're your place. Come as you are and fit in comfortably. Mr. Mice, eat locally, enjoy casual.
When it comes to the game we
Sedin and Nick, we had a passerby come in. We have the door open behind us. And asked if we'd ever seen a house like that in our lives, and I said, yeah.
Might have seen a house or two.
Yeah, there's been a couple.
No, but that was one fascinating end. We've seen a lot of passive kind of strategy from both teams in this game so far, and then everything happened. We had time to see it all, really, and we had time to make a few good calls and a few bad calls from up here too. And yeah, we got a bit of everything there, and it finished with a really nice tap for 2. But now we got that interesting situation where Dunstone needs to score 3 to win the game, 2 to take it to an extra, and this is what Dunstone is really good at. So it'll be interesting to see how they do and what they do to try and generate those 3 points, because obviously they do it better than most.
And the great thing about 5 Rock too, Nicholas, is that in the past, this end is extremely cookie cutter. We know how it's going to play out. As soon as that 4th rock comes to a stop, it's Peel City for the team that's up 2. But it's not only has it made the end more interesting, it's made the defensive strategy more interesting. Because where you play that 5th shot of the end when you can't peel, Are you going with a third rock in the house? Are you going with a guard on the 2 stones that are in the rings?
Yeah, I think we want to be a bit deeper.
And then how are you playing it out afterwards? Are you getting to a point where the peel really isn't helping you that much, so you're still throwing draws to defend, and that's not something we ever would have said pre-5 rock free guard zone. So it's made these final ends, along with the no tick, making the steal and the extra more interesting. It's made it a lot more fun to watch for the audience and more fun to analyze in the booth.
Okay, I thought you were good.
Yeah, I think those
Looks light to me.
those rocks, number 5 and 6, those are the 2 interesting
Fight the 4 guy.
calls
Line's perfect.
to see what they elect to do.
And this is one that we've seen more and more now over the last year or two, I'd say, is
Line's
this
great, guys.
draw to take away the draw path above the tee line. A shot that you would never play in the first 7 ends of the game, probably. But when you're going all out to take the 2 away, seeing that come around the corner guard is that's a new facet in the sport that we never saw before.
I think Jacobs was one of the first to kind of
gives him a
start
free rip in
using
a
this.
corner, like.
So I'm not surprised to see him use this strategy now and try to block off that corner. And like you said, we've started seeing more teams using it as well. And me personally, I'm not sold on it. I probably wouldn't make that same call.
Well, and it's an interesting call because if you throw to the center with a draw to the wings, you have so much margin for error with where it can end up. And again, we expect them to make the shots they're calling regardless. But if you're talking about getting a good result regardless of the shot, you have probably 6 feet of weight you can throw it to the center where it's a good result. Whereas if you're a foot or 2 heavy on that come around draw in the corner or short of the rings, you're helping your opponent with where you place that stone. So it has to be precise in order to get a good result. And that one was made perfectly, and it's still not a great result because of the shot that was made afterwards.
Exactly, and I think the thing too is that even if you make that draw, it's so easy to kind of put it into a bad position. You only need to tap it up a couple of feet, and then it's all of a sudden a backing behind the corner. And like in this case, even though it's perfectly made, a freeze and now lined up towards the center rock on top 4. So essentially, with that freeze being made, that draw around the corner helped Team Dunstone, in my opinion. But
I think that's good.
You could achieve the same thing, obviously, if you put up a center guard and they push it to somewhere good, or they make a freeze behind it. You might wish you hadn't thrown it as well. So that's why this 5 guard zone rule is very interesting. The calls you need to make are very different, and you need to think ahead quite a bit here.
Gallant with the in-turn hit and roll, trying to roll center, and very well made.
So now we actually are in that situation.
Exactly
3
where
in the
it would
house.
have been. Yeah.
Removed the rock they just played there themselves.
It's not a replay. Let's roll and try and get this in the air.
Like I said, I'm not sold, but at the same time, I could be completely wrong. We've given up a few 3-pointers to lose games as well, as have most. Now when we've used this 5 guard zone rule for quite a few years, it's definitely not easy. If the opposition makes all their 8 shots, you're going to be in trouble no matter what kind of strategy you use.
So playing soft hit here for Lott. Love to get these yellows moving, not bunched up in the center and roll to the wing if they could ever get it under the corner guard.
Yep. Go down.
Just controlled weight.
Gotta go.
Probably about board.
Keep going. Hard roll. You really got to go on the roll. Really got to go on the roll.
Good shot.
Very nice, Cole. Great shot.
Right, so sitting 4th and 5th, but 2 in the rings.
Trying to
opens things up a little.
I like this other side, but
it's either that or you're just here.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Love
Oh,
that.
10.5, Mark?
Yep.
What turn do you like?
I like the out here. I know what to do it.
Same thing back now for Team Jacobs, just trying to hit and roll to the center. All Already on third stones, too. About half the time it took the previous end, I'd say. All that time they banked in the first half was extremely important.
Close.
Curl. Straight. Curl.
Go ahead.
Yep. Roll it.
Roll it,
Roll
hard.
it. Whoa.
Good there. Good.
Yeah, good.
Beauty.
A great shot from Kennedy. Rolls to a perfect spot.
Not the first time a commentator has said that about Mark Kennedy.
Just keep the recording handy, and you don't have to keep saying it.
It's my first
and
dog.
even rolling it just to the opposite side of the center line,
Yeah,
too,
just try
to
and
get
make
the
like
best
the roll is
angle
the most
possible.
important part.
Yep. You're probably just going to be on this here. That's fine. We always have a double. I do think we want to try and kill this.
Okay.
Just because we got nothing in here to want to be able to make this double clean.
I don't want to take up too much time here in the eighth,
Like
so we'll
outturn
just give you
firm?
the winners on the other games with finals victories for
three-quarters.
Schwaller, McEwen, and Mowat, all getting to 1-0. Keep you right here with the action.
Whoa.
BJ
Curl.
Neufeld trying to lose two of these if he can.
Hard.
Needs to cross.
Really got to go. Roll. Okay, now. Reds are gone.
I think both those Reds are going pretty quick here. That really needed a cross, you see. We're trying to get this to turn over and roll to the opposite side so there's no double and lose two of the yellows.
Actually, it's
But
more like a third.
it'll be a double now. Just a third of the stone here from Kennedy.
Curl. Curl.
Come on, buddy, hard.
Curl.
Good.
Just good enough.
Okay. Good shot, Mark. That's okay. Good shot.
He's on the ones by the corner.
So, Nick, if they're going to
Listen,
manufacture a
Cold
three, it's got to
Yeah.
be with the final three stones.
Your top four depth.
Did you get a time on his?
I
I
had
think
15
now is the time to ask me this when the chance is basically gone. I really have no idea, but I think what they're going for right now, the freeze, might be kind of the only chance to score three, but it's not going to be easy. Even if they make all their shots now, it's not in their own hands. I think
Line. Okay, line's
it will be
good.
very possible for Jacobs from here to hold them to at
Line's
least
good. Line's
only
good.
two.
Line
The
Line's
rim
great.
is
Line's great.
most likely gone
Close. Hard line. Hard line.
for Dunstone.
Hard line.
They need to keep this on the high side to be
You
third
really got to go.
down.
You just got to go. Okay, Beach.
Don't think they held it for third. Looks like Jacobs is still sitting three.
Now the interesting call, do you just
This
rip
isn't
it
going
out
anywhere.
by hitting your own
It's too bad
into
that
the
we've
side
got
of the
two of
red?
them in here.
Looking from above, that looks fairly automatic. You really can't miss that double.
This is.
Well, you also got to run here. Like
And then
something.
You at least won't lose the game from there.
This is probably psychotic for us to hit half a rock and make this double.
Well,
I
then
don't
I'm
know, whatever.
psychotic too, I guess, because to me it looks like an automatic double.
You got to be a little psychotic to play this game at this level, so I think we can all agree on that.
And yes, you might be sitting 3 points and you can
Chip and
start
roll to the
going
middle.
aggressive and do something else, but at the same time,
Can we pick that? I know it's real thin, but
you don't really have to overthink this. I don't think it's a
No, I hear you.
it's a double you would make 19.5 out of 20. In my opinion, you just play it.
Can't get rid of that 6 right now, Mark. And then if he comes in here, he might not be able to get rid of anything.
Just on an angle where I heard Jacob say, can we pick it clean? And that's a really, really tough shot. You would have to just take the paint off that red because it's so close together, all the spin.
Yeah, and the
you
miss
get.
could be really bad playing that shot, too.
Yeah, because that would basically if you plant it on the middle one, the spin would make the middle yellow between the red, yellow, the middle one there, top yellow would probably get the rotation to spin out of there, and the red would be shot over the two yellows on the edge.
Yeah. Not great for
and your
us.
shooter would spill some of the yellow
But
in the
if we
middle.
could ever hit like a thin quarter and just kind of move these around, is that okay?
Okay.
Not really.
Do you like that, Paul? I like board.
I guess the only good thing here is that they're not playing a ton of weight.
Yeah, I assume when they said how much they wanted to hit that they were going to fire it, but just trying to get this over the top, move the other stones around.
The good thing is, if they hit this too thick now with this kind of weight call, all three in the middle will be shot over it.
I don't think it's lots. I think it's good.
Now, this is very, very interesting. Maybe the double isn't as easy as I think it is.
Hair quiet.
Just trying to chisel this stone over the top, roll middle. Jacobs first
Hard, Benny.
in the 8th end.
Hard, Ben. Come on, dig.
He's definitely getting a piece of it.
Hard, Ben. Yep.
Makes it to sit 4, 5 possibly. So I think that's a pretty good result.
I guess when you make it that perfectly, then any kind of call would have been good there.
Looking at maybe getting 4 of these moving. Dead beak is close to a quad. Question is, what does it leave back?
The bad thing about that shot with the quiet weight, even though he made it as good as anyone possibly could, it's dead buried behind the corner. So depending on what Matt does next, if he can remove enough yellow, maybe that red comes back into play. Is it fully buried? But the shooter would have to roll somewhere good as well for that to come back into play.
This is lost now, right?
I don't even know, like we just got to get this. Hopefully it goes
Yeah,
to here.
that'll go.
Like,
I can't see a world where, yeah, it's always going to touch it. Yeah, we're trying to hit right there. Yeah, let's make sure we make that one, and then we
Well,
can...
they kind of go hand in hand. I think if you hit the rock, that's their best chance to get this to go somewhere.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I would have thought with Jacobs' hitability on his out turn, I would have bet my house that I don't own on him making that double. But not even going for it probably wasn't as easy as it looked on the overhead for me, or maybe everyone else saw that it was tricky.
So trying to get 3 of these moving, maybe not the 3 we initially thought they were going to be playing. But shooter has to stick around.
And just a
That's the biggest
shade
thing.
less.
So can't overthrow it either. Needs 3 rocks to move, playing the in-turn. Oh no.
God.
Slipped out of the hack. Yeah, we've all had that happen time to time. Just the hack foot for Dunstone slipped out of the back. That's just grip.
It's fucking embarrassing.
You feel for Matt. I mean, he's trying to get a little extra velocity. I think they were actually playing to just kill a bunch and hope the shooter may be caught on something. I mean, with throwing that much
I don't
weight,
think he has anything, guys.
your shooter's gone unless it's thin. So I guess they were just playing for 2 with the red that was under the corner and letting the shooter go. Huh?
Yeah, I think that was what they tried to do at least, and you could see Matt really trying to launch out of that hack. And I noticed in practice actually there were quite a bit of water in the hack after the previous players. I several times had to kind of with my hand remove a little bit of water in the hack, so maybe that's what played tricks on Matt there, and just with that kind of power going forward, the foot just slipped.
Yeah, and we want to make this perfectly clear too for the viewers that that was not mechanical error from Matt with his slide. It was literally just the foot not gripping the hack. So
Three,
he didn't do anything wrong or what he would normally do. He just had his foot slip out when he tried to kick out. And that's something that we don't plan for when we throw shots, even with that much weight. We expect our foot to hold in the hack. And Matt, just very unfortunate that that happened at the worst possible time for him. So that will be game. Jacobs
Was that play to
with
win
the
like
4-2 victory.
That's the whip of the week.
That's what I said.
They do take the 1-0 record after this first round. Nick, thanks for joining us here in the booth. We expect to see you back, I would think. We'll put it to the fans maybe. We'll see what kind of social media support we see from your Grand Slam of Curling debut here. But certainly enjoy the time with you. Always good catching up, telling stories. Great that they gave us a few blank ends to stretch out a little bit, but always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much. That game had absolutely everything, and if the viewers want to see me make some more bad calls, then let me know and I might be back.
Yeah, well, you can watch the games he's playing in as well, too, with Home Team Live here. The Grand Slam of Curling Canadian Open. Night draw. I will finally be off for the evening, but you'll still get the sweet dulcet tones of Brent Lang and John Cullen, possibly even Paul Webster tonight. We'll see. But 6:30 tonight for the next feature game for Tyler George and Nicholas Sedin. Signing off for the Grand Slam of Curling. We'll see you later tonight and tomorrow.
Adios.